Hello, welcome again to Irinka's Kitchen. What I'd like to do is share a recipe with you that is called mixed pickles, and it was a recipe that my grandmother also used for her meat dishes, as mentioned in my cucumber salad recipe. My mother also made it, and she also put it into sort of canning jars, and then she would cook it up in a big canning pot kind of thing for making pickled cucumbers, and she made CSALAMÁDÉ. CSALAMÁDÉ is mixed pickles in Hungarian. So what I'd like to do is share a great recipe that can be served with meat dishes, can be served as an appetizer also. So what I'd like to do is start by adding all of my ingredients to I've shredded up some cabbage. This is about 1.5 cups of cabbage. So I've kind of doubled my recipe to serve more than 4 guests. So this would serve about 8 guests. So I've got here some sliced orange peppers, and what I like to do is I like to add that to the cabbage, and then I've got sliced red peppers, and I've got some yellow bell peppers and green peppers. Lots of peppers in this recipe. And then I've got some tomatoes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up all of these ingredients into the cabbage. I'm going to stir that all in there. And it's okay if it's not completely mixed with the cabbage. The color contrasts are just magnificent with this recipe. It's very appealing, and it's appetizing. Even the smell of the peppers right now, as I'm mixing them together, it's great. So what I'm doing is kind of tossing. It's almost like a toss, kind of like a salad. So I'm kind of tossing this together. I've added to my recipe, my recipe calls for yellow bell peppers, red bell peppers, and what I've done is I've added some orange bell peppers into this recipe also to just give it some more color contrast. Then what I do is I add 2 diced tomatoes into my recipe, and this also gets tossed into the salad. This is also a very common recipe in Hungary when you go to restaurants. You can order this as an appetizer or as a side dish with your meat, and it's served in a separate bowl. This is something that I would always order when I was in a restaurant in Hungary. Then I have onions. Now I have 1 large sweet onion. This is a sweet onion. I'm just going to use half of that. I may have cut up a little bit more than I should have. If you like a lot of onions, you can add more than that. My recipe calls for 1 large onion. You could use a medium one, you could use a small one, depending on how you like onions in your recipe. I just kind of toss it around. And then what I do is I have all my spices. So I'm going to add to this. This is salt, so I'm going to add to my recipe 1 tablespoon of salt. And you can add less depending on whether you want it to be a low sodium recipe. I've used sea salt for this recipe. I use sea salt with a lot of my recipes. So whatever favorite sea salt that you like, you can add that to it. You can use the table salt, but I like to use sea salt. And you just mix it around, and then I have sugar here. And this is 2 tablespoons of sugar. Just gives it a sweeter flavor. and it takes away from, when you're adding the vinegar, it takes away that very sour taste. So I like to add that 2 tablespoons of sugar, and if if you're on a restricted diet for sugar, you can add a sugar sweetener, sort of like an artificial sugar sweetener, or something like Splenda. I would add that to my recipe. Or you can use just regular sugar. Then I have here vinegar. So I've got about 3 tablespoons of vinegar. You could add more if you want. You could add less. And this is all going to stand. These spices and the vinegar and the salt and the sugar and the ground pepper is all going to stand in this in your refrigerator before you're serving it to your guests. So it's probably an hour or 2 before your guests arrive. You'd want to make this recipe because it's nice if it's standing in all the spices and the vinegar. Just gives it a better flavor. Then I've got some ground pepper, and I've added 1 teaspoon of ground pepper. You can add more if you want. If you like a lot of ground pepper, then you can add that to it. And of course I toss all of this around. And I will put it into the refrigerator for about 2 hours. And it's great, you serve it in a bowl like this, something like this, a see-through bowl. And it's just a great recipe for that, for meat dishes, even with fish. It's great with your favorite fish that you serve. Great for summer. It's a great summer salad if you're having a barbecue. So this is another great salad recipe that I shared with you. So I hope you've enjoyed being in my kitchen, and I hope to see you again. Bon appetit, jó étvágyat. My website is irenkaskitchen.com. My email is irene@irenkaskitchen.com. Bon appetit, jó étvágyat.